School week is almost halfway over in Oklahoma. It hasn't even begun. Teachers in the state have staged a second day of walkout, saying they can barely afford to do their jobs. Now, imagine being a teacher in the world's biggest economy and not getting a pay rise in some 10 years. Not only that, your funding over the same period's been cut by 28%. Excuse me. These are the realities of Oklahoma, where teachers saying they've taken up all kinds of other works just to survive.
I have been teaching algebra for 13 years.
You know what? I'm gonna put the 1X there.
On top of the teaching job, I also drive a bus part-time. I also do Lyft. I do Uber.
Well, there's a price surge.
I umpire Little League.
And that's it, but time.
I believe that on top of my teaching and my coaching, that I've got 6 or 7 part-time jobs.
Waiting on my students sometimes, or my students' parents, or some of my old customers saying, "Why are you back? Are you not in education anymore? Did you realize that you're not making enough?" Patio? Okay. It's, I wouldn't say embarrassing, but it's just more of a realization of how far Oklahoma needs to come to get educators what they need.
The state's promised teachers a pay rise. The teachers say it's not enough. They rejected the rise that was offered to them. And instead, they've posted pictures of decades-old textbooks held together with duct tape and classrooms that are falling apart. Now, let's be blunt here. Oklahoma is not a state racked with economic problems or one that's full of far-left anti-Trump protesters. Oklahoma's unemployment rate is smack bang wallop in the middle of the national average, around about 4.1%. Growth is 30th in the country, 30 out of 50, and it is one of the most solidly Republican states in the United States. Catherine Bishop is the vice president of the Oklahoma's teachers' unions. You rejected the pay raise that was approved by the legislature, the state legislature. Why was that, bearing in mind that, as one state legislature says, we've just passed a 447 million tax increase. It's a substantial amount. I don't see lawmakers doing anything else this year for education funding.
Right. I would probably correct and say we did not reject a teacher's pay raise. We know there's other pieces that need to be funded, and one of those is funding into our classrooms. And that's why 25,000 teachers, support professionals, parents, students came out yesterday, and even more came out today to have their voice heard, that we need to invest in our students. We've neglected them for over a decade.
Why have they been neglected? Because if there's one thing I've ever learned, it's that parents tend to be extremely vocal, particularly middle-class parents tend to be extremely vocal when their children's education is at stake.
That's a great question, because we have to stand firm and we have to let our voice be heard, that we can no longer not invest in our students, not invest in our core services. And that's happened over the last decade, that Oklahoma has continued to cut its revenue sources time after time again and not invest in our core services.
So what is it you're wanting? What is actually, I mean, besides better pay in the pocket, obviously, for your members, but this idea of classroom services, what do you want?
We're needing funding into our classrooms. What they proposed and passed the other day wouldn't even buy one textbook for every student. We have technology that we can't even keep up. We have students that are sitting in broken chairs, textbooks that are being held together by duct tape. And we have class sizes that range anywhere, sometimes 35 to 40 students. And that's not acceptable for our students.
Okay, so I think you would accept, surely, that you're not going to be able to right this wrong of several decades in 1 year. How far are your members prepared to stay out on strike or to involve themselves in industrial action to get a long-term solution here?
So we are ready to stay as long as it takes. To have a deal that was negotiated in good faith, that makes an investment in our children. What was passed last week was a down payment. We know that it's going to take several years to make that up, but we need to make that down payment more meaningful that we can
Sure.
help our students.
Many of our viewers watching around the world, many of them will be watching and thinking, my goodness, you know, US is the wealthiest country in the world, arguably. No, right, we could put in Qatar there or Singapore, but you know what I mean. And they're talking about old textbooks and broken furniture. So, and this in a Trump state. What's gone wrong?
It is making sure that we have the revenue. And when you have a legislature that is year after year cutting all of your sources of revenue, much of those come from taxes. When you have just chopped away, then we see ourselves in a hole.
Please come back and talk more about this. Fascinating to hear your point of view from Oklahoma tonight. We appreciate it. Thank you.